Jessica. Thank you so much for your beautiful post. I really enjoyed reading it. And the first thing that I just wanted to say is that dealing with an elderly population, I cared for my grandparents when they were near the end of their life, and I always had a very good relationship with them. I think that the transformation of roles going from being the person who is taken care of to having to take care of somebody is really different. And it can often be one of those things where you are trying to meander through this limited time, even though sometimes you don't know that that's what it is. And so I definitely liked what your post said, and I just wanted to go through like 4 points. You talked about the elderly being an overlooked and vulnerable population, and I think that both these things are true. The overlooked point, there were times, even though my grandparents, and I'll reference back to them probably a few times, even though they had one another and they had a long and beautiful marriage and they produced children, their children produced grandchildren, that they could see, what their legacy was. Still to them, there were things that they wanted to do more of or do better. And it was really interesting to me because I was like, look at what you've created. But, to them, it was wonderful, but there were things that they were glad that we did, and there was more that they wanted to do. And with them being a vulnerable population, when my grandparents were also in assisted living facilities because they had issues, well, my grandfather, he had taken a fall and he was going to be able to walk again. And so he was at a facility, and I think that they do as much as they can, but because of them being underpaid, understaffed in some situations, it's hard to receive, the care that they need to. Speaking about legacy building, I think that's something that elderly people do wrestle with. And I don't think that, in my opinion, that there's anything you can do in your youth to absolve you of those questions that you will ask near the end of your life, even though we never know when that will be. But I think, going into your next point, about the focus on more of youth and youth revival and bringing to the church, elderly people can set a wonderful example from them. And then, in addition to that, I think that in your youth, you can try so many different things to have a fulfilling life. But when you get to the end of your life, whether you're old or young, there are just some things that you're going to grapple with, and that comes with experience. And I think if you're old enough, you probably have lots of wisdom, and so that's always something that the youth can glean from the elderly, and I think vice versa. But I know that in the church there's a concentration because we are losing people who are younger and they're delving into spirituality or less organized religion. And so I think that we don't want to leave the elderly population behind. We want to, fold them in and have them, not only fold them in, but have them be, the heads of the church and be able to ideate and concept youth, elderly, middle age. There's so much that we can all learn from one another in terms of different ages. And so I thank you again for your post. It really resonated with me. Have a good night.